Women who cry in bathrooms don't become CEOs, they become cautionary tales. Dr. Margaret Thornfield delivered this wisdom while I sat in her corner office, tears still fresh from being screamed at by a client who'd blamed me for his own mistakes. But the real lesson that day wasn't the one she thought she was teaching. It was that sometimes your biggest doubters become your most valuable teachers, just not in the way they intended. I'd idolized Margaret Thornfield since my first day at Brennan & Associates. She was everything I wanted to be at 24, polished, powerful, and commanding six figures as the youngest female partner in the firm's history. Her office walls displayed photos with senators and CEOs. Her assistant guarded her calendar like a fortress. When she walked down the halls of our Chicago high-rise, people moved aside. "Listen, Naomi," she continued, sliding a tissue box across her mahogany desk with the practiced movement of someone who made too many young women cry. "I'm going to give you advice no one else will, because I see myself in you. That's the problem." I wiped my eyes, confused. "I don't understand." "Exactly my point." She leaned back in her leather chair, French manicured nails drumming against the armrest. "You don't understand how this world works. You think talent and hard work are enough. But this morning, when Davidson screamed at you for his own incompetence, what did you do?" I tried to explain. The data showed. "You got emotional. You took it personally. You let him see he'd gotten to you." She shook her head, disappointment radiating from every gesture. "Men like Davidson eat weakness for breakfast. And women who show emotion in the workplace? We're nothing but walking weaknesses to them." The injustice of it burned in my chest. "So I'm supposed to just take it when, yes." The word cracked like a whip. "You're supposed to take it, smile, and make him think it was his idea to fix his mistake. That's how women survive in consulting. We don't lead, we influence. We don't confront, we navigate. And we certainly don't cry." "But you're a partner," I protested. "You lead teams, entire divisions. I'm a partner because I learned to think like them while looking like this." She gestured to her impeccable suit, her perfect posture. "I became indispensable by being non-threatening. By making male clients feel smart. By never, ever showing that I might be better than them at their own game." Something cold settled in my stomach. This wasn't the mentorship moment I dreamed of when HR had paired us in the Women's Leadership program. "You're saying I should pretend to be less than I am?" "I'm saying you should be realistic." Margaret stood, signaling our meeting was over. "You're brilliant, Naomi. Your analysis this quarter has been exceptional. But brilliance isn't enough. You need killer instinct, and frankly, women like us don't have it. We're nurturers, consensus builders. It's biology." "Biology," I repeated flatly. "Don't look at me like that. I'm trying to help you avoid my mistakes. I spent 10 years thinking I could have it all, lead like a man, succeed like a man. You know what it got me? Divorced, childless, and respected but never liked. Men fear women with power. Other women resent us. Is that really what you want?" I stood to leave, mind reeling. What if I don't accept that? What if I believe there's another way? Margaret's laugh was bitter as expensive wine. "Then you'll learn the hard way, just like I did. The corporate world wasn't built for women to lead, Naomi. It was built for us to support, suggest, and survive. The sooner you accept that, the less pain you'll endure." I walked out of her office that day with mascara-stained cheeks and something harder than tears in my eyes: determination. That night, I sat in my studio apartment overlooking the Chicago River and made a decision. If the traditional path meant becoming Margaret Thornfield, brilliant but bitter, successful but self-limiting, then I'd forge a different one. The next morning, I submitted my resignation. "You're making a mistake," Margaret said when she heard. She'd summoned me back to her office, this time with what seemed like genuine concern. "Brennan & Associates is prestigious. You're throwing away your future over one bad day." "I'm not throwing it away," I said, surprised by my own calm. "I'm investing it differently." "In what? Some startup that'll fail in 6 months? A smaller firm where you'll hit the same ceiling, just with less prestige?" "In myself." The contempt in her eyes was immediate. "Ah, you're one of those. The lean-in generation who thinks you can girl boss your way to the top. Let me save you some time and heartache." "No." I cut her off, probably the first time anyone had dared. "You've saved me plenty already. You've shown me exactly who I don't want to become." The words hung between us like a challenge. Margaret's face cycled through surprise, anger, and finally, something like pity. "You'll be back," she said softly. "They always come back, once reality hits. When you do, I hope you remember that I tried to prepare you for the truth." I started my consulting firm, Apex Strategic Solutions, with $30,000 in savings, a laptop, and an absolute refusal to accept Margaret's worldview. If women couldn't lead with authenticity in traditional firms, I'd build one where they could. The first year was brutal. 70-hour weeks in my apartment, cold calling potential clients who hung up the moment they realized I was a one-woman operation. Ramen for dinner. My parents' concerned calls asking when I'd get a real job again. But I had something my competitors didn't. I listened. Really listened. Not the way Margaret had taught me, to make clients feel heard while manipulating them, but to actually understand their problems and solve them. My first major client was a manufacturing company hemorrhaging money. The CEO, Janet Huang, had been turned away by 3 major firms who'd mansplained her own business to her. They kept telling me I was too emotional about the layoffs, she told me over coffee. That I needed to think like a CEO, not a mother. As if caring about my employees' families makes me weak. What if it makes you strong? I suggested. What if we found a way to restructure that saves jobs and money? Her eyes lit up. The big firms said that was impossible. The big firms think a lot of things are impossible. We spent 3 months rebuilding her operations from the ground up. Instead of mass layoffs, we implemented job sharing and cross-training. We renegotiated supplier contracts. We found inefficiencies the previous consultants had missed because they'd been too busy proving they were the smartest people in the room to actually listen. Janet's company turned around. Word spread. Female executives who'd been dismissed, talked over, or told they were too emotional, started calling. My authentic approach, the very thing Margaret had warned would destroy me, became my differentiator. By year 2, I had 3 employees. By year 3, 12. All women who'd been told they didn't have the killer instinct for business. Turns out, when you define success differently, you need different instincts entirely. We built Apex on radical principles: transparency over manipulation, collaboration over competition, emotional intelligence as a strength not a weakness. We cried in our conference room when we lost a bid and celebrated with champagne when we won. We supported each other through divorces, pregnancies, and family crises without apology. And we delivered results that made the traditional firms nervous. Heard about your latest win, Oliver from Deloitte mentioned at an industry conference. The Morrison Industries restructuring. We'd pitched that for months. They wanted a partner, not a preacher, I replied, remembering how his team's proposal had lectured Janet Morrison about real leadership. Careful, he warned with a condescending smile. This touchy-feely stuff works for small clients, but when you play with the big boys, you need thick skin. I smiled back. Or maybe the big boys need to evolve. The turning point came in year 4. We degrown to 30 employees and were competing for a massive contract, a Fortune 500 company's complete operational overhaul. The kind of project that could launch us into the big leagues or destroy us if we failed. Our competition? The usual suspects: McKinsey, Bain, and Thornfield and Associates. Yes, Margaret had left Brennan to start her own firm 2 years after I did. The industry is changing, she told the press. It's time for women-led consulting to show what we can do. The irony wasn't lost on me. But I had bigger concerns than Margaret's convenient evolution. The Fortune 500 client was Datastorm Tech, led by notorious hard-ass CEO Bradley Chen. Everything Margaret had warned me about, the need to be non-threatening, to make men feel smart, to never show emotion, seemed designed for this exact moment. Forget everything you believe, my CFO, Sandra, advised before the pitch. Chen will eat us alive if we go in with the collaboration talk. Then he's not our client, I said. Naomi, this could make us. Really make us. Not if we have to unmake ourselves to get it. We pitched authentically. I talked about emotional intelligence in leadership. My team presented data on how psychological safety drives innovation. We showed how their toxic culture was costing them talent and profits. Chen sat stone-faced through it all. At the end, he asked a single question: why should I believe a bunch of women understand what it takes to compete in tech? The room held its breath. This was it, the moment Margaret had warned me about. The killer instinct test. Because we've been competing our whole lives, I answered. Just on a different battlefield. We've learned to read rooms you don't even know exist. To solve problems you don't see coming. To turn perceived weaknesses into strategic advantages. That's not emotional thinking, that's evolutionary thinking. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, when can you start? We won the contract. More importantly, we transformed Datastorm's culture so successfully that Chen became our biggest advocate. Apex doesn't just consult, he told anyone who'd listen. They revolutionize. The business exploded. Clients came faster than we could hire. We moved to a proper office, then a bigger one. Awards rolled in. Magazine profiles. Speaking requests. And through it all, I kept hearing about Margaret's firm struggling. She'd built it on the same principles she'd preached: be like men, think like men, lead like men. But the market was evolving. Clients wanted authenticity, innovation, and leaders who could admit they didn't have all the answers. Everything she told me was impossible was becoming inevitable. The acquisition opportunity came through our lawyers. A mid-size consulting firm was quietly for sale. Good client list, decent reputation, but declining revenues. The owners wanted a quick, confidential deal. It's Thornfield and Associates, my lawyer confirmed. Margaret's looking to exit. I stared at the papers, remembering her tissue box, her certainty that I'd fail. Part of me wanted to let her firm collapse. The petty part. The human part. But the leader part, the woman I'd become despite her limiting beliefs, saw opportunity. Structure it as a merger in the press, I instructed. Let her save face. But I want controlling interest in CEO position. The negotiations took 2 months. Margaret never knew who the buyer was, everything went through lawyers and investment bankers. She'd asked once, apparently, but was told the buyer preferred anonymity until closing. Margaret. The day of the final signing, I arrived early to the conference room. When Margaret walked in and saw me, her face went through a symphony of emotions: confusion, recognition, disbelief, and finally, a pallor that made her look every one of her 58 years. You organized this? Her voice was barely a whisper. Hello, Margaret. I stood, extending my hand. It's good to see you again. She sank into a chair across from me, the table between us like a reversal of fortune. How is this possible? Turns out emotional intelligence and authentic leadership are competitive advantages, I said gently. Who knew? Don't. Her voice cracked. Don't mock me. Not today. I'm not mocking you. I'm offering you what you never offered me, a second chance. She looked up sharply. What? Stay on as a consultant. Learn what we've built. See how wrong you were, not about the challenges, those were real, but about the solutions. You want me to work for you? The disbelief in her voice might have been satisfying once. Now it just made me sad. I want you to work with me. With all of us. To help other women avoid the limiting beliefs you taught me. To show them there's another way. Margaret was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. I've lost everything. My firm, my reputation, my confidence that I knew how business worked. You haven't lost everything. You've lost your limitations. That's just corporate speak for. I leaned forward. Do you remember what you told me? That women like us don't have killer instinct? I was wrong. No, you were right. We don't have killer instinct. We have something better, builder instinct. We create rather than destroy. We evolve rather than dominate. And that's not weakness. It's the future. She signed the papers with shaking hands. As our lawyers finalized details, she asked quietly, why are you doing this? Really? Because you were my most important mentor. Not in the way you intended, but in the way I needed. You showed me who I didn't want to become, which helped me discover who I did. And who is that? I thought about it. A leader who cries in boardrooms sometimes and still closes deals. Who builds billion-dollar strategies while supporting my team through personal crises. Who proves every day that emotional intelligence isn't the opposite of business intelligence, it's the evolution of it. Margaret worked with us for 2 years before retiring. She never became a true believer, but she became something more valuable, a bridge between the old world and the new. She helped us win over skeptical clients who still believed in the old rules. She taught us which traditions to honor and which to destroy. On her last day, she stopped by my office, now the corner suite with the view she'd once commanded. I owe you an apology, she said. No, you don't. Naomi, please. Let me have this. She sat in the chair where I'd once cried. I told you women couldn't lead because I deconvinced myself I couldn't lead as myself. Every compromise I made, every authentic piece I carved away, I told myself it was strategy. Really, it was fear. We all do what we think we must to survive. But you didn't. You did something braver. You decided to thrive. After she left, I sat in my office thinking about cycles and circles, mentors and mirrors. Margaret had been right about one thing: the corporate world wasn't built for women to lead authentically. So we rebuilt it. Today, Apex Strategic Solutions is valued at $500 million. We have offices in 12 cities. Our client list reads like a Fortune 500 directory. And yes, I've cried in this office, when we lost a team member to cancer, when we won our biggest contract, when my daughter was born between board meetings. Each tear was proof that Margaret was wrong. Emotion isn't weakness, it's data. It tells you what matters, who matters, and why the work matters beyond the bottom line. Sometimes young consultants ask me for advice, sitting across from my desk the way I once sat across from Margaret's. I don't offer tissues and limitations. I offer truth. The business world will tell you to be less emotional, less authentic, less yourself. Don't believe it. Be more. Be everything. Be the leader you needed when you were starting out. And if someone tells you that you don't have what it takes, thank them. They've just shown you exactly who not to become.